Hello all. In this particular tutorial, we will learn how to connect to PostgreSQL database using Power BI for desktop. Now, before you connect to the PostgreSQL, you need to know some information. And what is that information? The information that you need is where is your database, where your Postgres database is hosted, what is the PostgreSQL port number. Typically, by default, it is 5432. However, it might differ based on your environment. The database name, the Postgres database name that you want to connect, we will connect to a database called Pagila. The Pagila is a sample database in the Postgres. So like in SQL Server, we have got AdventureWorks. Similarly, in Postgres, we have got a database called Pagila. And you also need to know the username and password, which has got the access to this particular Postgres instance and this particular database. Now, let me tell you something. To connect to PostgreSQL data source using Power BI, no additional software is required. The software is internally built within the Power BI and hence you don't need an additional software. Now, if you don't want to use the integrated method, there is a separate method, and that is the second method where you will use the ODBC method. To use the ODBC method, we will download the PostgreSQL ODBC driver from odbc.postgresql.org or directly this particular link. You can either use one of this particular link and I'll show you how. So we will, in this particular tutorial, we will see both of this method, the internal method where you don't need additional software, and we will also learn how to do it using the ODBC method. So let's proceed with our lab. So we got here a Power BI installed. So let's launch the Power BI and I'll show you here. Let's go to ODBC drivers and you can see we don't have any PostgreSQL driver. Or let's go to the control panel and let's find out what we have got installed here. And you can see we don't have any component related to PostgreSQL. So here what we are going to do, we are going to say get data from other data sources. Click on database and click on PostgreSQL database. Let's say connect. And here we are going to give the server name. This is the server where the Postgres database is running. In my case, it is DB2. And the database that we are going to connect is Pagila. And by default, it is 5432. So we don't have to mention the port 5432. So now click on OK. It's going to prompt for the username and password. This particular username and password will be the username and password which has got access to this Pagila database. So let's say that user is Postgres user and the password of that particular user. And let's say connect, and we should be able to, again it says unencrypted, which is fine, and we should be able to connect to our Postgres database. As you can see, we got connected to our Postgres database, and this is actually a data coming from the Pagila database, which is a Postgres database. So this is the one method. Again, we can load this particular data, and whatever we want to do with that particular data, we can do that. So you can see we got that particular data. So if you want to get that particular data and perform whatever things that you want to do. So this is the one way where, as you have seen, that we have not installed any additional component. We have done it without installing anything. So let's click on close this, and now let's try to do using the ODBC method. So now let's go to get data from other data sources and let's click on ODBC method. So let's say ODBC, and here you can see under the ODBC, we don't have any data source names. We don't have any data source names. And I've already shown you, and let me show it to you one more time. We don't have any drivers related to PostgreSQL. So let's do something. Let's go to the browser and let's go to this particular link. And you can always search for ODBC driver, which will point you to this particular link. But anyway, I got that particular link. So odbc.postgresql.org. Here you can go to this PostgreSQL download sites, and our Postgres version is 17. So let's click on this 17th version, and we will, if you want to install only the 64-bit, you can just click on this 64-bit. So let's download this 64-bit. Or you can, if you want to install both 64-bit and 32-bit, you can download this PostgreSQL setup.exe, which will install the 64-bit as well as 32-bit driver. But since our machine is 64-bit, I'll stick with 64-bit. So now I've downloaded this particular software. So let's go to that particular downloads location and let's run that. Let's install the PostgreSQL PSQL ODBC setup. So let's click on next, accept the license, click on next and install. So once this particular component is installed, now let's go to our ODBC data sources, and here you can see under the drivers we got the Postgres drivers. So what we are going to do now, we will choose this 64-bit again based on your requirement, ANSI or Unicode. So we'll stick with ANSI, but you will have to choose which method is required. So I'll choose ANSI, and what I'll do, I'll say add and then PostgreSQL. So I'm going to create a data source and give a name. So let's say this is a Pagila database. So let's say Pagila, and or otherwise we'll say this, the data source is Postgres and the database is Pagila database and server is DB2. This is where our database is running. This is the user which has got the access to that particular database, and the port by default port will be 5432 and the password of this particular user. So let's give all of that and let's do the test connection, and connection is successful, which means we have successfully made a connection to this Postgres database using the Postgres driver. Let's click on save. Let's click on OK. Let's go back to our Power BI and let's say get data more, and we will say ODBC. So we will choose this ODBC and click on this ODBC, and now you can see we got this Postgres appeared here. It was not there before. Now that we have created a data source, we got the Postgres here. So click on OK and it will prompt you for the username. Again, the user which has got the access to that particular database. Let's give that username and let's give the password of that particular user. And let's say connect, and we should now be able to connect to the Pagila database. You can see we got connected to the Pagila database. It's the same database that we connected using the integrated method. So these are the two different methods. We can use the ODBC method or we can use the integrated method. So let's go back and say that to connect to the Power BI, there is an integrated method which does not need an additional software. Or you can use the ODBC method where you can install the ODBC and create an ODBC data source, and then you can use the Power BI to connect to the Postgres using the ODBC data source. Based on your requirement, you can choose one or the other. I hope you did like this particular tutorial. In this particular tutorial, we learned how to connect to PostgreSQL from Power BI for desktop. If you did like the video, if you did like the content, do subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching and see you in next tutorial. Till then, bye bye.